Today in the shop, we worked on the 888 fairing repair, and we tried to lay out a plan of action for some of the things that look like they'd be small details, but they turn into multi-day jobs. Now, the first one is getting this edge right. I've had several movings of the tape that covered on the video, of course, or on the previous couple of days video, but we wound up at the end of this getting a good color blend and getting a reasonable edge that we can bury in clear. However, the part had to dry overnight before I could go on to the next step. So the next morning when I came down, I did the sand out with 2000 grit, looked around to see if there was anything I could do to fill in the day with filling in chips. There were several chips. I had to make a fiberglass reinforcement. There were some spots to fill in with CA, and I tried to cover how to maximize the ability to fix a paint chip. When there's a chip in the paint, everybody thinks you can just put a dab of paint on with a Q-tip. Maybe. Anyway, I think there's some good information on this video. I hope you enjoy it. So here we go. Off to work. Hey, here's a real surprise. There's a good chance of snow today. Who'd have thunk it? Holy mackerel. This is like the 10th day in a row they predicted snow. And well, we did get a little snow, but I don't believe a word. But anyway, we're in the middle of doing this feather edging thing, so I really have a short day to work on this today. It's a perfect day to do the next step on the feather edging. Now, of all things, we're still waiting for the decals to come from Australia. I guess the Kangaroo Patrol or whoever's delivering these decals. Italian decals from Australia, they're holding up production. If I had the decals, I could be working today if it doesn't snow. But who can tell if it's going to snow? And who can tell if the decals are going to be here? And who can tell if the sun ever comes out if this red is going to match? We have a very interesting week ahead of us. But it has been fun corresponding with Joe every day and finding out the latest on our project. This project has taken on a life of its own, the DUCATI project. I don't know what we're going to call it. So years from now, we're going to look back at this winter and I'm going to be laughing about all this, the snow and unpredictability and everything. But in the end, the passion for motorcycles will see us through, I'm sure. I think early in the morning like this, you have to have a passion for chopping ice. And boy, we have had plenty of ice this winter. It's been terrible. So the bottom line is it's been that kind of a winter, but we do have the table dug out and I will be able to get the next step on the feather edging done, as long as it doesn't snow in the next hour. And it's time to just warm up here. Boy, it's cold out there. Woo! Cold! So coming in, having some coffee, changes my whole perspective on life. Get a look at my wheel drying up here by the heating vent. I'll be ready to put upstairs maybe in the next day or so. The black is just as shiny as can possibly be. That really worked out great. Now, this has been drying up by a heating vent overnight. We're ready to move the tape. And, of course, I'm thinking the color match is pretty good. But, of course, Joe gets the final vote. So what I'm trying to do here is called feather edging. I want to blend this in. This has one coat, and I'd like to get another coat on it. Actually, I want to try to get about 3. I'm going to pull that back. Now I'm going to take this tape off. And I know you can't see this on the video very well, but that's an edge I can feel with my fingers. So what I'm going to do is get some 2000 grit paper and just break that edge ever so slightly, and then move this next layer of tape up about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. It's not really critical. Then bring the tin foil back down and put another, just spray this area. This we already have the right color, but right here where the primer ends and the red begins, I want to bury that in red paint if I can. Not really sure. Sometimes what happens when you're doing this is because of the tin foil, it blocks, it tricks the camera into thinking it's nighttime or something. And you get a very dark presentation. But for right now, I just have to go to war with the army I have. So with this piece down, and this is a real simple thing, but the problem is once I do this, I'm pretty much done for the day because that has to dry. Now I see that edge is exposed and there's a little bit of paint there. Well, I can take a piece of, this is 2000 grit paper, and just kill that edge. And it only takes a minute to do that. I can do it in real time, in fact, because we are going to bury this in clear. I don't want to take any more off than I have to. I just want to take just enough that I can't feel it, and that's about the right amount. Get rid of the 2000 grit paper. Hope it isn't snowing out there yet. Boy, oh boy, what a winter this has been. Holy mackerel. It's hard to describe to people outside our area how confusing our weather pattern is. Amazing. Okay, now of course this will go back down. And if the camera hasn't gone into total blackout here, we're home free all. Alright, so I'm going to fire up the compressor and hopefully get out there and just, what I'm going to try to do is spray it from this edge down. So I don't want to get a big paint buildup there if possible. Okay, we're ready. We got the compressor all fired up and I'm ready to go out there. It is really getting brutally cold. It's colder now than it was this morning. Now and fast forward, that went as well as you could expect considering the weather and that the wind was blowing. I took a little coffee break and got a second coat on there, and it looked like pretty much this was all it might take. I'd still have to wait for it to dry, but it looks like we've got the color match pretty close right now at that. Boy, if you only know how lucky I am to get this done, because it really has the look of it's going to snow any minute here. And just getting this done, I think that may be all we need to get that blend in nice. We've got the color kind of that you can't see where the primer ends, and it's only that little fine edge that I got to deal with some 2000 grit paper. But now this is going to dry overnight before I can do the other little touch-ups on this. And we don't have the decals anyway. They're coming from Australia. You believe that? That is still the funniest part of this whole job so far. Now that's right under a heating vent with our wheel. The wheel's going to sit there at least one more day, maybe 2 days. That'll dry up, and in the morning when we come back to the shop, we'll be ready to go to the next step. But if you try to rush this stuff, you're in big trouble. It just makes a mess. And after all the time I've put into these parts, I'd really like them to be perfect if I could get it that way. And I think I can. And the other good news is all the hardware for this job, everything, the Curvy Girls, we got the disc. I've got everything I need here. For actually, the only thing we're waiting for is our decals from Australia. But we'll live to fight another day. That's going to dry overnight. Now this morning I'm out here flipping battery chargers, and I'm hoping that paint dried up well. We got some more touch-ups to do on that fairing, and I'm hoping we can get that all taken care of for one reason. The snow is now not in the forecast. Oh, boy, does that make a difference. And maybe, just maybe, our decals will get here from Australia. And all I have to do is chop the ice, drink the coffee, feed the birds, and I'm ready to get that. I want to get the rest of that little touch-ups done on that fairing so that the day the decals come, we'll be ready to work. When you see the thickness of the ice, you have some idea of just what a crappy winter this has been. Boy, have we had to work around some icy conditions. Oh, it's cold out there. Oh my God. Another cold day. Might get a little tricky here because we've had this up by the heating vent. Let's scratch it. Oh yeah, that dried up nice. Now we're still going to work on, and I want to look at the edge. Yeah, it's totally acceptable. We're going to work on the edge here. Try to get the last of that edging. In fact, maybe we have enough. I'm going to do a little light sanding with 2000. Maybe we won't need a third coat. We'll decide if we need a third coat or not, and then we can move on. And hopefully it won't snow anymore. It was supposed to snow yesterday, supposed to snow the day before, then it snowed, then it didn't snow. Making a plan for a day is like a nightmare. But one of the things that is really important that this dry overnight before you go sanding away on it, or you just wind up making a, as I always say, making a mess. Anyway, we will try to get this. Let's see how that came out. Well, it looks pretty decent, to be honest. I don't know. I guess we're going to find out here. Once we see, this is going to be once we get this sanded. Now the next thing on my, I'll get rid of that tin foil. That tin foil makes the camera all dark anyway. And I want to start here and go right up and a little bit over the blend line with some 2000 grit, get out any imperfections so that this is nice and smooth. Once I'm happy with that and it's roughed out, then I'm going to start working on these paint chips. All right, so it's our favorite material for this job, 2000 grit Rhino Wet. Get a nice piece going here, and we're going to just try to go 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch past that where the new paint and the old paint join. Try to minimize that. Now the little step that is there, it won't really be a problem to get rid of it once we're dealing with clear, because we'll just bury this in clear, same way we bury a decal. But the point is to get this to go up without a defined step that'll show up in the final paint. So this will just, with 2000 grit, this will be relatively easy, 10-15 minutes, and we'll have this all roughed out. Now if it does need a last coat, and we hope it doesn't, of course, well, I'm not sure because of the weather. I am totally baffled by the way this weather has played out. It's really been a problem working around it, but we have got it done. So I'm not sure if you can see it. That little bit is going to get buried in clear. I'm not worried about that. And we have some where these stone chips were up here, some imperfections. They'll get filled with clear for sure. I'm not worrying about that. It's easier to fill them with clear than to put more red on this, because then it may tend to change the color. And I think the color is going to be fine. So that area now is ready to bury in clear. Next thing I have is all of these little stone chips, and I'm going to go around this carefully and I'll explain what I'm doing. To fill these up, there's a lot of ways to fill them. Now, the one thing that I found never worked for me well, I take a little bit of Bondo or some kind of filler and then paint over it. Never worked. What works here is to take the color paint and just over the course of a couple of days put a drop, a drop, a drop, a drop. And when it's higher than the paint around it, scuff it in with some 2000 grit and then bury it in clear. The same way the decals are buried in. But there's several of them all over, and I think, well, the reason I want to start today doing this is going to go over the course of a couple of days. Just keep putting a drop in. Now, the one thing you don't want to do is take a big glob. It'll never dry. You just want the tiniest amount, let it dry an hour, 45 minutes. Put another drop, an hour. Another thin drop, but never put a big glob in it. Now, there's several of them here. Here's another one here. Because ultimately, when we get these done, we did not want to have to tamper with that. The whole objective here was not to tamper with that decal, because we weren't sure. Well, we're still not sure they're coming from Australia. That kangaroo hasn't arrived here yet. So in the meantime, while we're waiting, we can fill these chips, and I'll look around the whole part. There's chips up here. And then the last thing we have to do is fix this. I got to put some reinforcement in the back and then fix that, blend it all in, and probably do the same thing up there that I did down here. I don't know. We're going to find out. So my gut feeling is this color was a good color match. Color right I've always found they're really close. I have a little bit left over, but not a lot. I don't have enough to do another fairing part either. So, and I know this paint's really expensive, but I do have an artist brush with a very fine tip. And so what I do is just from the cap. Now what happens is no thinner in this paint at all. I don't want any thinner. I just want to put the slightest little drop in here, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do this on camera. Let's just see if it's my lucky day. I need to build this up over the course maybe of 2 or 3 days, and what I'll do is every time I go past the part, just put another drop in, but not put a big glob in. I wanted to do this without a camera cut. I'm going to go around the whole part, and there's about 20 little chips like this. Fill them in, because we'll be able to, once we get some clear on this, I'll be able to block sand that in that you'll never see it. So going around, and they're all up in the front here. On the front is all chipped. Up here is chipped. Over here is chipped. So this is going to be, well, I'm just going to be real careful and make sure I get as many spots as I can, or hopefully get them all. And it's just a question here of just being meticulous and patient and getting all these little spots, because once we put clear on this, we can bury this, and that's the whole motive. I see there's been a chip up here. I'm going to put some up there, even though I don't know. Well, it can't hurt. We're definitely going to coat this whole thing in clear one way or the other. Okay, so that's that. That even up here where the Zeus fitting goes, the paint is cracked. And of course, what I always suggest, and it's really common sense more than anything else, is if you buy any of this paint, this real expensive paint, don't use it all up, because when you put the bike together and tighten and or you get another stone chip, it's a good idea just go out once you see a stone chip, clean it with some prep oil, and if you maintain it, it never gets to the point where it's not worth restoring. Okay, this part of the repair, and I want to point this out, this has spider webbing. In other words, it's cracked the outer clear, but we're going to just lightly sand that down when we do the final repair, and the new clear hopefully will not be a problem. I'll try to reinforce that from the back. That'll make that a little bit easier that it's not going to have a tendency to do that. But this is a spot I've got to fill with. I've got to put some CA in there first of all. I've got to make sure that that's sealed. If that is a crack, and what happened, this hit right here and crushed that part down. So the first thing is to get some thin CA in there and a Q-tip, rub it in a little bit and get that to seal. Then we'll flip it over and put a little reinforcement in there if we can. And because CA is capillary, it's going to go right in. Oh, there we go. It's going to go right down in there. Hopefully that's going to seal that up from the outside. Now we can go to the other side and make our patch. It's pretty much the same thing over here. I want to get some thin CA to just drip down in there. Now there's some parts along this bottom edge. If I were to try to spray this, I'd have overspray everywhere. So this will be an easy way to do it. I just touch this up, let this dry, and then we ready to work where that CA will already be totally dry. I put several coats of thin CA in there so that any CA would get down inside if there's any cracking. There's cracking here. But now the thing is to get a little sanding block or a sanding stick and try to get this flat if we possibly can. Now, I also noticed this crack up here went further into the fairing, so when I get this part done, I'll flip this over and definitely put a patch in there. And I'll put one here. Even though I didn't think it was going to need it, I changed my mind when I saw how deep this is. Because what happened, this was the point of impact right here, and it just twisted this. And it's obviously, we've got to work on sanding it flat and then figuring out how we're going to touch up the paint. I don't know if we're going to be able to fill this gap with CA, I'm hoping, but of course you never really know until you get done with sanding it out. If there's any of this paint is loose or chipped. Now, I don't know what kind of paint this is, but in the olden days, and who knows when the olden days ended and began, this paint would tend to dry out. I've worked on a lot of older bikes where the paint just was so dried out and chunked out, and it was really difficult to get it to match and to just blend in. But we're going to find out here very soon. I don't know if we're going to be able to fill that with paint now. This is going to be the real challenge. Let me do this again. The real challenge to all this stuff is to get it flat and not go through any more than you have to. And I'll just see if we can do that. And then I would like to take this and do the same thing I was doing with the little touch-up brush over the course of 2 or 3 days, build the paint up. That would be my first choice. And I'm trying to do this whole job. So far, there is 0 Bondo on this job. Every body filler material is CA, which is really a lot, in my book, a lot better. Not even close. Okay, we almost got that flat. Actually, it's pretty close. So let me just think if I can do this. See, a lot of times the problem with this is you have to invent it as you go along, because you don't know how deep that chunk is that's missing. And well, when I saw how deep this stuff really is, then I realized I do have to put some reinforcement on the back. So I was hoping I wouldn't, but you know, sometimes, not sometimes, almost every time, the part seems to have a way of winning. Okay, so that's about as I think we're going to be able to fill that with paint. We're going to use the old paint filling technique. Now up here, this is another thing, and I'm trying to do this in real time. This is just spider webbing or in the clear. That won't be a problem at all. And we will try, once this part is, that we've got this filled with paint, and then maybe, let's see, we can do this and that at the same time, mask this off and spray this part. You've got to kind of invent this as you go along. And that's why, and I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube. I have not seen any that cover this kind of a thing. I think it's rare. Maybe there's nobody, I don't know. Every time I think I'm looking for body shop tips, well, they show me stuff for cars and stuff, but not really for this kind of work. So now the trick is one more thin coat of CA on there with just, I'm going to take CA, put it on a Q-tip and rub it on there to make sure everything gets, that I've got that crack sealed, because I don't want this to be covered with clear and buffed out and everything, and then you hit a bump and you see the crack come back. So a little extra in there will seal that up. And again, this is a good tip too, is you put the CA on a Q-tip and very quickly just rub it around. Rub it on the whole area. Make sure it's capillary material. Wipe it with a paper towel real quick. Let it dry for about a minute, and then we'll go back and sand it over again, and then put some touch-up paint. Once we're done with the touch-up paint, we'll flip it over and I'll look around for other spots if I'm going to take my reinforcement material out and try to get all the reinforcements done in one shot. Now as I started to sand these areas, you can see the cracks, because I will reinforce that in the back. There's two cracks up here by the blinkers, and this is a very focal point of the motorcycle, so I can feel that this is a deep crack. I'm going to, since I've already committed to the fact, I'm probably going to have to repaint this top piece the same way as I did with the bottom. Well, I want to get that perfectly level, and the same technique is doing this. This whole area here comprised another couple of days of repair work. And all of these little details, if you don't do them now, what happens once you start the final paint and the final clear, and boy, then you're so sorry you didn't. It's like building a house. Good analogy. You're building a house, you're putting a roof on, you're putting all the granite in, and then you think, oh, I should have put real cement, not that, not Play-Doh or whatever you used instead of cement that was a little bit cheaper to make the foundation. And once these are smooth, it's pointless to do anything until everything is smooth. You can't touch up something that has a mountaintop. You got to get rid of the mountaintop first. See, here we're getting rid of the mountaintop right now. So the trick is, as I come up on the end of the day here, is to get everything that I know is going to need touch-up, get some touch-up paint on it. I still have to do the reinforcement. And I think that'll be cheap insurance that we're not going to have this happen again, of course. Boy, there is nothing worse than doing all this work and then you hit a bump. Or in the case of any twin-cylinder bike, it wouldn't matter if it's a Ducati or a Yamaha or what. Twin-cylinder bikes vibrate, period. In fact, all these older bikes vibrate more than modern bikes, that's for sure. So we need to always take that into account. And I think realistically, because we don't have the decals, we're going to spend a couple more days doing this kind of little touch-up. Then at the last thing, I'm going to back mask this whole front, this whole top. I can see I'm going to have to do it. There's just no cheap way out of this. And because this is a focal point of the motorcycle up here. If this isn't right, boy, is it going to look crappy. Right by the blinkers, right by where you're going to see it. Now these are, I'm just filling this with paint for right now. But again, I don't want to do this and I don't want to rush it. I want to put it up by you have plenty of other projects to work on. But I want this to, now from this point on, once I do the reinforcement, this is going to have to dry overnight. And I've even got plenty of touch-up paint up here. So actually, just build up extra paint and I can blend it in. I'm using the paint to just fill up the fact that this had brush strokes in it. So that's about, now I'll go around the whole part again with another dot of paint and then let it dry. Flip this over and do the reinforcements, and that's probably all we're going to get done today. Because what's going to happen is every day Karen wants to go see the puppy, and I don't blame her. He started out being a puppy. He's about doubled in size already. But we have a lot of fun with him. And it gives us an excuse to play out in the snow. Or play at somebody else's house where we make a mess and don't have to clean up. So this is the back part of where the cracks are. So what I'm going to try to do is just get some 5-minute epoxy and get this little reinforcement of e-glass in there, and also a little piece down in there. Just hopefully that'll prevent or stack the deck on our favor that this is not going to crack again. And this is the epoxy that we use. The reason I like to use Brodak, because they have a very big turnover and it's always fresh. When you buy it at Lowe's, you don't know how long it's, well, you don't know if it's been there a year or been in a warehouse in China or what. And a little e-glass. This is good for doing these kind of little delicate repairs. We can't really get a big chunk of carbon fiber down in there, but the e-glass will make for a nice clean repair. Now the reason I don't want to build that up is I'm sure something fits in there in that notch. And I don't want to have it that I can't, that I'll compromise that and it won't fit the way it should. So this will be an almost invisible thing when it's done. No, there's a sad reality to doing any restoration. If you're restoring the Titanic, or you're restoring Grandma's China, or you're restoring Joe's Ducati. You work with used stuff that you don't know the origin of, and you do your best to try to make it that you have a successful repair, but there's always that chance that there's a crack underneath the paint, or, you know, just like restoring old houses. When I was restoring old houses, there's always something going on behind the lath that you didn't know about when you started the job. So this will be, I think this will be good. It won't disrupt how the blinkers sit in there, and I think it'll really, hopefully anyway, the word is always hopefully. I don't know why. Anyway, I have done a lot of this stuff and it almost always works out, but again, there's always the chance that a twin-cylinder bike on a bumpy road, or if Joe intends to go back to track day, which I don't know about, you really put this stuff to the test. But I would just guess that Joe is going to be real careful with this, and I know he treasures all of the bikes in his collection. He's got an RD 400, by the way, and because he was a professional rider, I know he knows that there's a time when everything is time to hang up my spurs anyway. Time to hang up the Ducati here. Anyway, I really hope he enjoys having this, all the work we're putting into this in his collection, and it'd be good memories of when we all were younger. I love having these older bikes. And this is going to stack the deck, and this actually is probably all we can get done today, but I have to check with Karen if there's any other things I haven't thought of. I think that'll be a very successful repair. So this day ends with all our shop projects just about as under control as you could get. That's drying. And I even put these little spacers in so it would really be closer to a heating vent and warm it up. I want that paint to cure up another couple of days. What I decided to do, and I'm not sure I'm going to do it yet, I painted this black in here at one point in time when I had this set of discs on the bike, and I was thinking it'd probably look better if I polish it, because the other discs that are on the front of the bike are polished, so that may be another project. We got the Curvy Girls, we got all the new hardware. That part is ready for the decals from Australia, so I guess we are really well on the way to having this job where we'll be going to be done with it. So as the video ends today, wow, last couple of days we've made some good progress on this, but again, we're slaves to the weather and slaves to the Australian delivery service, but we will get it done. It was snowed in anyway, so it doesn't really matter. You put an extra couple of days into a project now, nothing bad happened. And the wheel is cooking, drying up like that might be the nicest wheel we've ever made. I don't know. We're going to find out once it's done. But I'm hoping we're not going to get any more snow. But you never know. You never know. It's so unpredictable. It's unbelievable. Anyway, I want to thank the healthcare workers. Guys, because of you, I'm able to do this kind of work and keep busy and keep Karen happy that I'm not sitting in the bars upside down drunk. And she's happy that I'm working in the garage and working in the cellar. I'm happy to do these little mitzvahs for my friends. And it's all thanks to the healthcare workers for keeping us safe. Guys, again and again, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I appreciate it more than you would ever know. And thank you guys that endure watching me do these repairs and all these adventures we have. And every day's an adventure, and we really don't have a lot of Groundhog Days around here. And we don't want any more. So thank you so much for watching. So we do try to post up something pretty much every day. One of the things we have at our disposal on a freezing cold day like today is a look back at some of the great memories of summer days that we had in my garage. And this is one. I have this earmarked in my Photoshop thousands of pictures. A day that Lauren came down with her DUCATI Monster, and Glenn was going to help her do some electronic work. The taillights, I believe it was the taillights on her bike didn't work. She had a broken chain guard. We managed to make a carbon fiber part for her chain guard. She got to learn how to do some of the maintenance, some of the basic maintenance, and I do remember her doing some chain adjusting and some chain cleaning, and this was one of many days that Lauren came down to the shop to work on a bike. She enjoyed doing her own maintenance, and of course she's an emergency room nurse, so she's well aware of how tragic some of these things can be. And Chuck was there. We had painted a bike for Chuck. We actually did his OSA that turned out to be a real show winner. And I'm trying to think, we did a Hercules for him. And Chuck, of course, many years we've been good friends. He's a dirt bike expert. And I think they do most of their riding down by the Pinelands. Anyway, there were some parts we rejuvenated on Lauren's Monster. Glenn did some of the painting. By this time in our friendship, he had gotten the skill of painting very well. I think he was doing some stuff for Chuck. They were doing some, if I remember right, this was back in the day. At any given time, we had 4 or 5 bikes in the shop, all taken apart and motors taken apart, and we always had 2 or 3 of Luciano's bikes down there. He was flipping bikes like pancakes at the time. And this was a great learning experience for Lauren, and I know she did enjoy doing some of this work herself. She eventually, I don't know if we have it on this video, but she replaced the chain on a bike, and we did some work on a rear brake up at Luciano's one day, and she was very competent at working with tools. She was happy to do it. So anyway, here's Chuck, and great memories. Look at the garden. Look at the back of the garden, and how much we really had some special days. And these days bring back the memories of many mitzvahs. Now, whether Glenn did some mitzvahs today, Lauren did some mitzvahs, we were in mitzvah mode here, and we were just having a great time. Right in the middle of it, Miles stopped by with the family, and we had a nice little visit. And of course, everybody wants to see Miles here. He's the star of the show. And look how young he is there. You should see him now. He's got a puppy. Holy mackerel. Great memories. And I encourage every one of my friends, if you have grandchildren or whatever, take pictures of them while they're young. If you have a new bike, take pictures of it while it's new, because years go by and you wind up like me, that you look back at this stuff and it brings a smile to your face. And he really did have fun. And we always, these days that we worked in the shop, he'd be putting some blinkers on the bike. I know Glenn has done a lot of work for other people up in his shop when he got the new house with the new shop. And I'm always happy to pass on the skills I was able to pass on to him. I know he's put them to good use, and he's basically enjoying all of his Ducatis. He's got several in his collection. But back in the day, we were really having a wonderful time. Now, I'm not sure what we were doing here, but having all these pictures, looks like the kickstand, having all these pictures that on a freezing cold day, and I mean it's brutal out there now. It's not fun being outside. It's not fun shoveling. It's the most fun is coming in from the cold. And here you are, you sit at your computer, look back at these memories, and yeah, I think we made a little foot for the kickstand. It's wonderful working with your friends. Now, in my case, I worked with modeling friends for many, many years in my garage and my shop. We always had what we called pizza night at Wendy's. We always had 8-10 people over for pizza on Monday night. It cost me a fortune, but it was well worth it. And I got that most of my friends then gained a lot of weight, and I didn't feel so bad. It was selfish on my part. Anyway, Lauren had a lot of maintenance to do here. Glenn was really good about helping her out. And I'm sure at the end of this video, we all had either a pizza or a coffee or a cupcake or something. But these are memories of days. There's Karen there. These are days, I always call them the days of wine and roses. Days you never forget how much fun you had when you get involved with motorcycles and you have a bunch of friends that like motorcycles or model planes or whatever. And you have a nice tight-knit group of people like we had, and we still have the A-team, and we had Bob Navola and Vince and Jose and Joe and the list goes on and on. There's just too many good memories. It's hard to pick one in particular, but at the end of every day, we always had a great time. And I, for one, love looking back at these memories. It's a special time of my life. I enjoy doing all the mitzvahs I do for other people, and I love it when those people, like Glenn, go on to pass on the mitzvah spirit. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.